What a way to make a living. Crypto is on the rise, making that dough in the crypto paradise. Watching it go, buying low, selling high. Riding the wave, I'm here to stay, living in the digital age. No banks, no fees, just decentralized. It's crypto paradise. Ooh. No banks, no fees.
Good morning from paradise, friends. We got a good one today. Hope you guys are doing well. It is Wednesday, September 3rd. Markets are looking okay. We're good. Nothing too notable. I'm sure we'll cover some charts, but the thing I want to talk about today the most is Tom Lee's $62,000 ETH price prediction. What will I buy when ETH hits $62,000? What? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But who knows if we'll get there? I guess that's the bigger question. We got some bearish stories, too, to cover. Ethereum Foundation is selling a little bit of ETH. Is this a big deal? Is it not? And then we got some SEC news to cover as well, some adoption news, and I'm sure we'll get to some other topics as well. How are we doing today, guys? How are you feeling on this beautiful Wednesday morning?
Feeling good. Another, relatively slow day in the markets, which, again, as to be expected. Patience. We keep saying patience. You gotta be all right with the slow days because the fast days will come.
Yeah, nothing too crazy going on. I think there's some news stories that we're going to talk about. Everybody was kind of panicking yesterday, but Bitcoin and ETH kind of catching a footing here. As we saw, Google is doing well. They won their court case. They don't have to sell Chrome, so that stock went up like 2 to 4% or something like that, which obviously, with it being such a large portion of the index, really creates positive morale and momentum for the stock market as a whole.
Yeah, that was big news actually yesterday. A judge ruling that Google can keep Chrome as a business. That I don't think the antitrust case is over completely, so we'll see the full fallout from this, but in the coming days and weeks. But big news for Google, pulling up the stock market, like you said. And look, Bitcoin at 111, or wherever we're at right now, ETH at 4,300 or so. I think great. Like, let's consolidate at these levels for another week or so. No problem, right? And let's just be patient and wait for that next move higher. I think, like Nate said, patience is the name of the game. Whether you're investing in crypto, whether you're investing in the stock market, whether you're investing in anything, you gotta be patient. Nothing happens overnight. You don't get rich quick overnight. I don't care what the meme coin degens tell you. You don't get rich quick overnight. Even those guys who do well over there took years and years perfecting their craft. So just be patient, hang on here, let the consolidation phase play out. We got the Fed rate cut coming in about 2 weeks from now. So I'm not worried at all, just sort of enjoying this lull here as I still have my kids. For the last day, I have my kids up until they start school tomorrow. Wow, that's what I'm excited about. So maybe we can cover some charts here for a minute before I digress further.
Bitcoin up to 111.7 right now. Yesterday during the live show, we were up around 111, green candling when we were going live. So far, showing some strength this morning on the back of, like we talked about, stock market doing okay, primarily Google pulling up that entire ship. And if you're bearish here, you can still say the LA wave count is going to bring you back up to like 114 to 117,000 Bitcoin before we roll over once again. So hopefully you keep tuning in here and we can get you out if we need to. If not, hopefully this rips and roars to new all-time highs and finally gets to that $130,000 to $135,000 target. As you can see, Todd Butterfield's Wyckoff indicators did have a sell at 123.8, had a 50% buy at 112, and then another 50% buy yesterday at 110.5. So let's see if those indicators continue to prove right, and we can head to higher levels somewhere up here to 115 to 117 at least. Bitcoin dominance, that's what we like to see. Get back down there. Have another bear flag, please. We don't want to see it go above 60%. We would love to see it go down to 57 to 55% and finally have some kind of alt season and have some continued Ethereum strength, because Ethereum strength means our BNB does well, our Solana does well, our Pulse chain does well, and eventually it will trickle to our smaller cap alts. Some of the alts that we're in that have already done well, but we want them to go and rip again, like Fuck 9 to 5, Dose, Mellow, and the list goes on and on. Yes, we're up on those, but it feels a lot better when those things are 2 or 3x higher. We see Ethereum bouncing again off the 43.50 level up to 44.50. Is this the start of something? We shall see. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be impulsive higher, but that would be nice. Looks like maybe some kind of sideways consolidation. Keep shaking out some weak hands. Keep letting these companies buy up the ETH supply, and then hopefully we get a supply shock up to the upside, which would be at least a new high above this $5,000 mark. Finally! And the target up here is still somewhere around 53.50. So, I mean, that's kind of the update on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin dominance. Nothing too crazy. We've seen big pullbacks back to support on pulse chain assets such as PTGC, which are finally catching a bit today. We see BMNR catching a bit, up 5%. SBET up 2%. I mean, I think these Ethereum strategic reserve plays, you're not going to lose money on those through the end of the year and through 2026, especially if this is an exaggerated and extended bull market for crypto. We think we're heading beyond Q4 2025 into 2026. These are the plays that you want to be in. Get your positions now, get your passive income. And I think we're heading the right direction. Obviously, you guys tune in for the live alpha, for the live calls. When the market is like this and alts aren't doing much, it's much harder to get high conviction alpha calls. So we did give a call on a project called Rome at 15,000 over on Pump Tires. But again, these are degenerate plays, high risk plays, because they are launching on Pump Tires, which is the pulse chain version of Pump Fun. We call that a 15K. Right now it is about 60K market cap, when as high as 150K market cap. So maybe I'll do a video on that, because at least there is some utility there. There is GameFi there. It's called Rome. But again, it's hard to find altcoins when the altcoin market really just isn't behaving.
Yeah, now's not the time to be hunting for, or really taking big risks, big swings on low caps. In my opinion, you can maybe find some outperformance. You can find some gems here and there, but it's going to be, quick, short-lived, oftentimes pump and dumps. We've seen that a handful of times during this sort of a consolidation phase, right? Ethereum is where the attention's at. It has not trickled into altcoins. It's not trickled really into memes. And so, it's a waiting game if you're sort of focused on that sector of the market. And like Nate said, you got to be patient. You got to wait for these consolidation phases to play out. Money will eventually flow down into the low caps, but we're not really there yet. For me, I'm just sitting on my previously, my high conviction plays that I had from, before this part of the cycle. I bought into Mello a while ago, bought into Fuck 9 to 5 a while ago, Substance, etc. Just hanging on to those because not interested in selling at the lows, waiting for, the market to rebound here, but, not really eeping into new stuff personally. I'm sure there's opportunities out there for those who are really in the trenches hunting. But, it's not a game I'm looking to play at this moment in time. So just hanging out, being patient. I don't know about you, Nate. Are you looking at anything low-cap gem-wise or just hanging on?
For the most part, just hanging on to stuff. I've messed around with a few Solana meme plays. Like you said, most of those are not anything long-term. Those are a quick scalp if you can get in and get out. Just kind of, something to pass the time, a little boredom buster. Nothing too serious, maybe 0.2 SOL here, 0.5 SOL there. Something to have some fun with. But what I have been doing, and what I think is something that we can all learn a lot from the times like these. So since July, when we've kind of been going sideways, we dip, we pump back up, and now we're down again. Who knows? Are we going to continue to go sideways, up, down, left, or right? But when you have these long consolidation periods, and I do think we're going to have a longer consolidation yet. Take a look at your top 10 coins that you're looking at buying and watch how they perform, especially if they're a more of a blue chip or a mid cap alt or whatever. Find the ones that you can kind of see some patterns where, when Bitcoin goes down, how strong are they? Like Link is a great example. Link has been really strong in the last month through these dips and stuff. It keeps wanting to go higher. Obviously, the markets are pulling it back down, but it's shown a lot of strength. Look for the tokens that are still showing strengths in these weaker markets. They're probably gearing up for a very explosive run once the markets do recover. So you can use these times to learn about, if you have choices, we all have limited amount of funds to deploy, right? So if you're trying to pick, look at the strength over the last month and a half, and we've seen this volatility of Bitcoins. When Bitcoin has recovered in the beginning of August there, how quickly did your alt recover? When Bitcoin dropped, how quickly did it follow Bitcoin? Did it hold up and show some strength, or was it one of those coins that was down 20% overnight, right? So that's kind of what I've been doing as well the last month here, is taking advantage of this slow time and studying what some of my high conviction plays are doing. So when I feel the confidence to get back in the market, those are the first ones I'm going to go after.
my boy Nate, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is the time to research. It's the time to analyze the market. It's the time to pick out some gems that you're looking to maybe ape into when the market does turn green. Completely agree with everything you just said. For me, I mean, Ethereum is the king of that coin right now that's showing that strength even in the face of Bitcoin weakness. And that's, I think, because a lot of whales are actually rotating their Bitcoin into ETH. But and of course, all the institutions buying up in these strategic reserve companies. But yeah, absolutely. If you're looking at the low caps, looking at the mid caps, I mean, there's plenty of coins out there that are strong. They have good fundamentals, good communities. They will recover and they'll bounce higher when the market finally turns.
Yeah, and talking about that, first of all, shout out to the 100 people already on Twitter watching and the handful of people, I think 10 or 15 people over on YouTube watching. Shout out to you guys. It looks like Fat isn't here. Maybe this is Fat Sammy. I'm not sure. Says, hey guys, shout out to you, Fat, for being over on YouTube. Those are the comments we can see. For some reason, Riverside does not show Twitter comments. Get in the YouTube. Ask us some questions, comments, concerns. Help the algorithm. That'd be great. But talking about being bullish on Ethereum, the Ethereum validator entry queue hits a 2-year high over 860k ETH or $3.7 billion waiting to stake. Remember last week, the FUD was that, oh my gosh, so much Ethereum is trying to unstake. They're all going to dump on our heads and Ethereum is going to dump to zero. Well, it looks like that there's way more people trying to stake than trying to unstake currently. And these most likely are all the companies, all these Ethereum strategic reserves that are buying Ethereum and then putting them to work and going to compound the rewards. So just remember, for every negative insight, oh, there's unstakers, there's profit takers, there's currently people who are still trying to stake, who are still buying Ethereum and are really pushing Ethereum towards deflationary status based on their buys. So I think Ethereum has a lot higher to go, and everything that we see day in and day out leads me to believe that that is the case and that Ethereum is really just getting started. And remember, it's still sitting below its all-time high, guys. Bitcoin is like $50,000 above its all-time high. Meanwhile, Ethereum still hasn't broke 5K just yet, and Ethereum right now is in the spotlight for traditional finance. We just need the retail guys to get back in. We need the levers to be pulled, and we need the steam that's getting built up. All this power and pent-up demand just needs to explode in the price chart versus what we're seeing on the actual validator stats, staking stats, usage stats. We need that to roll over into the actual price of the token.
Yeah, I was confused. I had a double take when you sent that article through earlier. I was like, didn't we just cover this like 2 weeks ago that everybody's unstaking? And then I read it again. I was like, wait, now this is the opposite. This is people going and staking their Ethereum. So yeah, in a matter of weeks, we went from, record high unstaking to record high staking. So that's, I mean, I don't know what's more of a bullish indicator than that. When you're locking your ETH up, I mean, you're long-term bullish. You're not short-term. You're not saying we're going to see Ethereum pump and then crash in November. You're locking that up long-term.
Well, I think the story here is it's very similar to what happened when Bitcoin started to run. The institutions, they're buying in. They are diamond-handed. They are convicted. And it's the OGs and it's the guys who maybe bought in a cycle or two ago and they're saying, hey, I'm happy with my 100% gain or 50% gain, or I'm just happy to get out at not a loss in the case of Ethereum. And they're, exiting to sell at these prices. So it's just, that the story is old as time. It's the money going from the weak hands into the strong hands. And it's the same thing happening to Bitcoin, happening now with Ethereum. And so look, if you're investing with the JEETs and you're unstaking and you're selling now and you're not following the Chads, the institutions and Tom Lee and the Wall Street bros, good luck to you. I'll be sticking with Tom Lee and I'll be holding Ethereum. I don't know if I'll hold till $62,000 ETH, but I'll certainly be holding at this point in time. Like Nick said, we're below previous all-time highs. How are you going to sell now?
Well, and it can't have bullish Ethereum news without the Ethereum Foundation dumping on your head. The Ethereum Foundation is selling 10,000 ETH, but the ironic thing here is, number one, the timing is pretty terrible. We're sitting right at previous all-time highs. We're trying to have a breakout. We're trying to get momentum. So not only are they potentially leaving millions of dollars on the table if they just had some patience, they just sold millions of ETH not long ago, guys. Number two, they said, no, we're not going to sell it to a company or an ETH strategic reserve or OTC to a whale. We're just going to sell it on the open market, but don't worry, we're going to sell it in small transactions, small market sell, so it won't impact the price all that much. Like, I don't understand. Bullish news comes out, all right, we're selling. Oh, well, we're sitting at all-time highs. We can potentially make millions of more dollars if we wait. No, we're going to pull a Germany and sell right here at the low. And then also it's like, hey, Thomas Lee called you up or Joe Lubin called you up, they'll just buy those OTC, give them a little bit of discount. You don't have fees, you don't have slippage, and it doesn't impact the market at all. No, we want to put it on the market for fair and transparent purposes. It just doesn't make sense. The Ethereum Foundation never ceases to amaze me. It's run like the Democratic Party. It's a bunch of morons in there. I thought we sorted this out, but apparently not. It's absolutely wild. And they said they're selling this for more developmental purposes and charity purposes. I don't think anybody gives a shit about charity right now. They want to see price go higher.
Yeah, people in Web3 never cared about charity, did they? But yeah, no, I mean, this is obviously a blunder. But it's a very, very minor and inconsequential blunder, because if you look at the amount of money pouring into ETH, I mean, so what's the value of 10,000?
Only like 44 million,
44 million. Just yesterday, Jack Ma's entity is, I guess, his family office or whatever it is. Jack Ma is one of the founders of Alibaba, one of the richest people in China, yada, yada. He alone bought $45 million ETH just yesterday. And so
Sharply Gaming has like 72 million cash, so it's not really a big thing. It's more just the optics. Because you got to remember, then you have retail speculating and seeing this. Oh, they're just gonna keep selling us. Remember, Ethereum Foundation is still like the 6th largest holder of Ethereum, and if you add in all the team members who are voting to sell this Ethereum, Vitalik has $1 billion worth of ETH. The other team members have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ETH, and if these guys can't survive more, they just sold it was like 5 million or 6 million last month. Like, how is our burn rate that high right now? I just don't understand it, especially on an asset that produces passive income.
I think it's the bear market PTSD. They suffer from it too. They don't have really good analysts on there. They're not watching Crypto Paradise, apparently, because they are making decisions based on, oh God, could the market turn bearish tomorrow? Because I'm scared, and I remember when things were crashing and ETH was at sub $2,000 2 or 3 months ago. So I think they got bear market PTSD. They probably don't really need the money. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. They're sure they have money lying around. Like, of course you do. The ETH Foundation. But again, the silver lining to it, I think, is that it's a nominal amount. It doesn't actually impact the market other than optically, like you mentioned. So I completely agree. They should never have done it this way. They should never have announced it. They should never have done it on the exchanges. Just do it OTC. There's plenty of people looking to buy it from you. I'm sure they buy it at spot price if you wanted to negotiate that. So it's just it's a blunder. I guess if you ask them, they'd say, hey, we want to do it transparently. We don't want to do anything behind the scenes and whatever. But come on, sometimes you got to do behind the scenes when you're in the financial markets. So look, it is what it is. I think the story goes away. One thing I will share my screen real quick on this topic. Apparently, I gotta actually do this real quick. So apparently, the ETH Foundation they own about 0.5% of the supply, right? So here we can break this down. Look on Chain did a nice little analysis of this. So hopefully you guys can see my screen here. But 25 ETH supply distribution. If you look, the Ethereum Foundation only owns 0.5% of the supply, so it's not a tremendous amount. Most of it's being staked. 55% is in the Beacon chain being staked, and the rest is on the sexes, etc. Apparently, Solana Foundation owns a lot more ETH than Solana than ETH owns of ETH. So take that for what you will. I'm not terribly worried about it, but again, I completely agree. The way they went about it was just asinine.
Yeah, it's discouraging. Everyone in the market's looking to ETH to lead alts forward, and you have the foundation of the biggest alt out there. The only thing that people look to outside of Bitcoin for market direction. When it comes to these top alts, and the foundation's just dumping on our heads. So it's definitely discouraging. Long term is gonna have a big impact. I don't think so. Like you said, we have so much money coming in institutionally to Ethereum that it's going to compensate for that, which I think that the team is expecting and knows that. But from an optics perspective, it's hard to spin in and make it look good.
Well, on a positive note, why don't we shift gears?
I was going to say, quickly, while we're on the topic of Ethereum, here's the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. We've been showing this for a while. You can see down here when we gave the official buy May 4th, May 5th. This is the exact low on the Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio. So not only has Ethereum price gone up, but it has vastly outperformed Bitcoin, and that was within the range of the exact low. We've been following this continuing stair-stepping higher with targets here, and then now our next target is another 23% higher. Remember, the whole thesis of Ethereum going to like $22,000 is Bitcoin doing a 2x and going to like $244,000, and Ethereum just reverting back to what its previous highs were in the last cycle. And so far, this thing continues to be at a 45-degree angle, continues to take out target after target, and continues to outperform Bitcoin in a major way. I think this continues. I think both of you guys here think that Ethereum continues to outperform Bitcoin, or at least we hope for it. Number one, because of the traditional finance and everything that's going on with the ETFs. But number two, because we really need Ethereum to outperform Bitcoin in order for alt season to kick off and allow the mass participation of retail to actually find financial freedom. Bitcoin going up by itself is great, grand, whatever. I'm sure we all own a little bit of Bitcoin. Ethereum going up by itself is great, grand, whatever. I'm sure we all own a little bit of ETH. But the real riches and the real opportunity happens when alt season and retail gets into the market, and it changes the lives of many in our community and as well as new people to the industry. So another 23% higher for ETH before the next resistance in the ETH to BTC chart.
Well, glad you mentioned ETH to BTC ratio, because that is the sort of fundamental basis for Tom Lee's $62,000 price predictions. Let me go ahead and share the screen real quick here. And it's actually mirrors a lot of what we talk about on this channel. Nick's been out talking about the $22,000 price prediction, just if Bitcoin runs to approximately $250,000.
Oh, 62. I thought you meant 6,200 earlier when you were saying that. Oh man, I was like,
No.
He put my 22K to shame.
yeah.
6,200 is peanuts, man. We're getting there next week. That's nothing.
Yeah, like,
that's nothing.
That's
Yeah.
short-term goal.
Thomas Lee's analyst says by end of September you're looking at like 5,500 ETH. So he's saying, hey, August did its thing. Everybody thinks September is going to be bearish, but by the end of September, Ethereum could be above that $5,000 level, and we could be seeing fireworks to like $5,500. Is kind of what they.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, because the Fed rate cut will accelerate the market, performing. I don't know if it hits 5,500. It very well could. I mean, we saw, just Powell's sort of intimation that they're looking to cut rates, and there's no details beyond that, caused Ethereum to pump 7 or 8% in a day. Remember, that was 2 weeks ago or last week when ETH hit all-time highs, and that was just Powell sort of like hinting that a rate cut might be coming, and the market was reading through the tea leaves. So the rate cut, we'll see what it actually does. Will it cause ETH to break through previous all-time highs and hit 5,500? I don't know. I do think that is a matter of time, though. That is an inevitability here, that ETH will break above 5,000 and 5,500 or whatever. Will hit that too. The $62,000 level, though, that's an interesting one, because if you read this analysis, again, it mirrors what we've been talking about on this channel, which is Bitcoin hits the $250,000 level, then the typical ratio, or at least a historical bull market ratio, would imply then that ETH could hit 22,000. Okay, we've talked about that. Then for it to 3x from there and hit the 62,000. This tweet doesn't quite explain it, but basically I think what Tom is trying to suggest here is that if Ethereum becomes the backbone of this new sort of decentralized version of Wall Street, like if you start to see tokenized stocks take off, if you start to see the various stable coins that JP Morgan's looking to issue, that Amazon's looking to issue, that Walmart's looking to issue, if you start to see all these most bullish predictions come to fruition, and then Ethereum becomes the backbone of this new decentralized financial economy, that's how you then would reach that 62,000 level. I don't know when it happens. I don't know if it happens. I don't know if I'll hold on that long, frankly. And I'm a diamond hand ETH investor. I might start to have to sell at $22,000 ETH. We'll see. But 62K, I mean, do you guys think it could reach there? And if so, when?
I just want to first say that I don't know if Thomas Lee watches the show, but you guys remember we were here first talking on Crypto Paradise, utilizing ETH to BTC ratio and coming up with the $22,035 target based off of our long-running BTC target of 244,000. So now Thomas Lee using 250K and the 22K mark and all these ratios. Remember who you heard it from first. Tom Lee, I think you need to hire us because, maybe your analyst is watching Crypto Paradise. I don't know, but we beat this we were ahead of this by like a month or 2 or 3 months off the lows when we bought it in May. Just so you know. Just so you know, you're ahead of the game and the biggest boys in the market. Look, I don't know about 62,000. I don't think that happens this cycle. But I do believe that 22K is possible based off history and based off if I stick with the projection of 244K Bitcoin price target for this cycle. I think that's very possible to happen. The 244K was a Fibonacci level I looked at, plus also realizing that 250K, just like 100K was last cycle. 100K was this big mental barrier. We all wanted to get there, and we fell short. Now, I think we would have got into the 80s or maybe even the 90s if the FTX debacle didn't happen and they're doing, the paper Bitcoin and all of that. But to achieve 250K and to actually hit that mental barrier is really hard to do. We just saw with the 5K mental barrier of ETH, what did we do? We fell short, like 4,800. So that's why I say 244K. But I think 22K ETH is possible this cycle. I think above 10K is a definite this cycle. That's why I'm so bullish on these Ethereum strategic reserve stocks. 62K, that's probably next cycle, which probably might not be till like 2030 or 2029. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if you think the math works out at 244 Bitcoin, 22K ETH, and we all believe in within whether it's next cycle or within 10 years that Bitcoin's going to $1 million, then yeah, I mean the institutional adoption, the pathway for Ethereum to reach these insanely high numbers, or what it feels insanely high to us now, but it won't then. 100,000 Bitcoin back in 2015 sounded pretty insane. And now we're pissed that it's at 100, not at 150, right? So, time will give perspective on this. But yeah, if Bitcoin's over time going to go to $1 million, no reason that we don't see Ethereum chasing, especially when we see, more and more of these financial institutions in 10 years. All the financial institutions are going to be on chain, like where everything's going to be on chain in the future, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. I don't think it's going to be longer than that. This industry moves too fast. But when everything is on chain, unless somebody dethrones Ethereum, they're going to be the lions. They're going to have the lion's share of that transaction volume.
I think what's crazy too, and people forget in the bear market PTSD, or maybe the retail's not here. I'm not really sure. Last cycle, Ethereum literally went from $90 to the all-time highs that we still haven't broken, or that we broke by $1 or whatever. It went from $90 to $4,800. Now this cycle, just a couple months ago, Ethereum was claimed dead at $1,400, and people were hoping we would just achieve $4,000. It went from $90 to $4,800. Now I don't think you see the same multiples, but what is that, like 52x or something? And now you're telling me that we can't go from 1,400 to 10,000, which is like an 8x. I mean, that's what it's crazy to me about crypto, and I'm trying to have perspective back to old cycles and look at the multiples that happened. And do I think they're still achievable for these large caps? I don't know if Ethereum can do a 52x, but it can definitely do a 10x or 15x. I mean, I think there's a lot of good projects out there, and we just need the capital to inflow from the retail side. Right now, it's all institutional demand, and it looks like retail is just not interested at all. Maybe people don't have excess money to put into the market every day, every week, every month. I'm not sure. But I looked back at that, and I was like, holy shit. Maybe 22K will happen. Maybe 62K will happen. We went from $90 to $4,800 last cycle. That's wild.
Yeah, I think people have to remember where we are sitting, Fed policy-wise relative to where we were when that run happened. That was... at least a bulk of that happened during the COVID pump, right? When the Fed had cut rates to zero, when the federal government was literally sending everybody checks. I don't know if we get to those super heady days of, oh my God, money's falling from the sky. But the Fed is about to cut rates. And they're not going to just cut them once. They're going to cut them 1, 2, 3, 4 times probably over the next, 3 to 6 months here. And then certainly once Powell gets replaced in May of 2026, I believe the cuts continue. So we have had this existing run, Bitcoin 15,000 to the 124 mark, whatever the all-time high is presently, during a restrictive Fed policy period. We're about to shift into easy money. So I do think you're going to see multiples happen on Ethereum. I agree. Look, retail's not in right now. Retail's really not, driving this run. But I think they will come. I think they will eventually enter the market once they have validation and confirmation that, hey, this bull run is legit, 3 months of uptrend, Fed's cutting rates, stock market's booming, Trump's passing more legislation that's positive for crypto, et cetera, et cetera. So we will get retail in here. I don't know. Again, I know $62,000 ETH this cycle is not, to me, realistic, but absolutely, why not in 5 years? Why not in 10 years? If you had asked me, 8 years ago when I entered crypto, was $100,000 Bitcoin possible? I would say, of course not. That's impossible. That'll never happen. And then 8 years now, 8 years on, here we are seeing 111,000 like it's nothing. So you'll be amazed what the financial markets can do over time. Hang on. And I think we hit that $62,000 level, not this cycle, but probably next cycle.
Shout out to Martin in the chat box. Said, hello, I made it. Good to see you here, bud. Good to see you commenting over on YouTube. If anybody has any questions, charts, fundamentals, whatever, throw it in the YouTube chat box. That's where we see it. Twitter, obviously, we get more viewers. That's where we're more active, but we're trying to pump up the YouTube numbers as well because that is where the chats are at. And that's where I think a lot of us started was crypto YouTube, and where I think it is easier to interact, digest, and understand live streams for whatever reason. YouTube just has the better platform versus X integration.
Yeah, I mean, carrying on a little evidence of what Amaro was just talking about there. This is the Labor Day prices of Bitcoin. We just had Labor Day 2 days ago back in the U.S. there on the 1st. 2012, $10 Bitcoin. Can you imagine? Man. If 2013, 130, and climbs the ladder all the way up 2025. $108,891. Interesting stat, I believe, is that if you hold Bitcoin for more than a 5-year period, you will never be down in history. If you've bought and held for 5 years, there's no point in history where after 5 years you've lost money on Bitcoin, and most of the time you've gained insane amounts of money. But yeah, over time, this is what's going to continue to happen with Bitcoin, with Ethereum, with all these top projects that are getting adoption. We see. The real value is being realized by the traditional markets, and there is trillions of dollars literally out there that can come on chain and will be coming on chain. We're at 100K now with a less than 4 trillion total market cap. Not even just not talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's at what, 2 trillion right now? The total crypto market cap under 4 trillion. And these are the numbers we're at already. So we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what these markets can do. So, we see these insane projections, of $62,000 Ethereum. We laugh, but give it some time, and those won't be so laughable anymore.
Yeah, the other Labor Day price thing was the cheapest gasoline in the United States of America for Labor Day weekend since 2020. So Bitcoin keeps going up, and gas has gone back down.
Trump policies doing their thing, man, doing their thing. I'm trying to find
there is another thing that we were talking about. I thought one of your news things was talking about crypto making its way into the S&P 500 or indexes in the future based off of potential regulatory things. I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah,
there is a chance that MicroStrategy MSTR could join Coinbase in the S&P 500 by this Friday. Does it happen? Will it happen? I don't know. Probably would be more likely if green candles on Bitcoin, but if you have Coinbase and MicroStrategy in the S&P 500, I'm about to be trolling my neighbor Bob even harder. All the people that hate on crypto, the drug dealers don't want to own it, think it's a scam, and now their S&P 500, their 401ks are getting chock full of crypto companies and crypto holdings without them even understanding it or knowing about it.
Yeah, it's inevitability whether one of these are going to be approved for the S&P 500. Coinbase, we know, is already there, so people are getting exposure to crypto through that. And then MicroStrategy, I should say, is going to get listed at some point, probably this Friday, like you mentioned. There's another story that dropped yesterday, I think a little bit under the radar. Just another bit of guidance from the SEC, CFTC. Okay, that's a little bit boring, but actually, if you dig into this story, it's pretty monumental because what it says or what it implies is that major regulated venues such as NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, CME Group, etc., may be eligible to list spot crypto products. So that means I can guarantee you there's already working groups. A buddy of mine actually works at NASDAQ. I can try to get confirmation. But I'm sure they already have working groups and executives exploring whether and how to list the actual underlying crypto assets on NASDAQ, for example. So the ability to buy Bitcoin, the ability to buy Ethereum, the ability to buy Litecoin. I'm sure they'll only list the very vanilla ones at first, right on NASDAQ. So look, adoption is happening before our eyes. It's slow, but it's happening, and we're witnessing it. And this is what leads to the $250,000 Bitcoin price levels when your dad and your grandpa can buy it right on NASDAQ.
Well, on top of that, how many companies in the S&P have Bitcoin on their portfolios? So you already, own it. By owning that stock, you've got exposure to Bitcoin too. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah, man, I'm bullish on what's happening. We're in a bit of a boring period for price performance, but that does not mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that there's nothing happening in the background and behind the scenes. So, this is like a lot of crypto. It's waiting. It's patience. It's just waiting for those days, those 7 or 8 days of massive outperformance. And you need to be in the market. So you need to be paying attention to take full advantage of those explosive moments. But that's not this time. This is the boring time. But hopefully you guys join and watch this show because it's educational, because it's entertaining, and hopefully we can kind of get through these boring periods together.
Any other charts or alpha that you guys are looking at?
I was trying to pull up, because Nate brought to mind the total value of all liquid assets in the world is something to the tune of like 50 or 100 trillion dollars. I mean, it's probably 100 trillion, something like that. I think the total value of all assets, including real estate, which is not considered liquid, is like 500 trillion. So crypto is a drop in the bucket. I mean, we're only at $4 trillion total across all assets. All, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all your random shit coins, every chain, $4 trillion. So, I mean, when we say you guys are early, that's just the facts. We are all early. And it's going to take Fed rate cuts. It's going to take more news stories like this. It's going to take more regulations and, acceptance from politicians for, us to hit that $10 trillion level for all cryptos, that 20 trillion, that 50 trillion. But it is inevitable. It is going to happen over time because this is still the best and most popular and newest and most exciting asset class of the past 20 years. And it's inevitable that more capital and attention is going to be pouring into it over time.
Quantitative easing is coming. Fed Governor Waller says over the next 3 to 6 months, we could see multiple cuts coming in. So let's see. There's somebody on the inside projecting multiple cuts. But what's interesting is not just through the end of the year. 6 months would lead you into 2026, which would lead you into Powell getting replaced, which would lead you into more regulatory compliance for crypto. And this is how you get the 4-year halving cycle breaking in the extended bull market in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptos, and getting the retail in late to the market for bigger, higher upside targets as this kind of stuff. Quantitative easing following through into 2026 and allowing these scarce assets to continue up and to the right.
Yeah, the more I think about it and the more information I take in, the more I'm led to the conclusion that it does not seem reasonable or likely that come December 31st, 2025, this bull market is just going to end, right? It just doesn't. It just would belie all logic, right? Based on all the evidence in front of our eyes. Now, historically, yes.
Well,
and do the whale cause a crash because they want to keep the 4-year halving cycle intact? Maybe. But I don't know. I don't think this market is really controlled by them anymore. I think it's more controlled by the traditional markets and the traditional cycles that you see based on Fed policy. So, yeah,
I mean,
I'm all for
historically,
this.
that would be, you'd probably have your top in September or October. We wouldn't even get through Q4 2025 for the history to repeat itself based on the timing and the days since the halving cycle and since the low. That's where you have, Peter Brandt talking about the September is the top and the market's over. And that's where you have the history, the people counting the days saying October is the top. And you don't even get you get a bearish November, bearish December, bull market fully underway in 2026.
That would be like Bitcoin's top, in October, and then but no, we'd have a few months of explosive alt season if history is going to play out, and then it would all come crashing down sometime in like December or January. I just don't know. I don't see it happening that way. I really, because look, this bull market hasn't been the same across any metric, really. I mean, yes, we had the halving, and then the market started to grind up from there, but that was more, I think, due to MicroStrategy and everything else than anything to do with the halving and the economics behind it. I mean, you got to remember too, the halving, as time goes by, it has less and less impact because the amount of Bitcoin that's already in circulation dwarfs the 450 that are coming into the market every day through the miners, right? I think it's 450, maybe it's 350 now. We already have mined 95% or whatever of all Bitcoin. So it's kind of a drop in the bucket. So the halving, I think, more of a sort of a psychological, historical indicator rather than like pure hard economics at this point. So look, we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know, but I am starting to think that this cycle is not just going to end magically on October, November, or December, or whatever the history would suggest.
Well, people that are holding to that, like the whole 4-year cycle, the core where it starts is with the halving, and the new all-time high always comes after the halving. That's already been broken, right? So if that's busted, trying to stick to all the other numbers making sense. Your equation, it's like removing a variable out of an equation, saying you're still going to get the same output. It's already busted. How busted is yet to be seen. But a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, not if you take the squared off the b, which we've already done.
In the normal phases that we've seen, phase 1, phase 2 with Ethereum, phase 3, all these phases are extending much longer than they have in history. The Bitcoin phase was much longer. We've had some moments, the Pepe run, some meme coin run, Solana with pump fund, whatever. But primarily, it's been Bitcoin only, and the Ethereum phase just started in June. And you got these Ethereum strategic reserves that say, hey, we still need to buy like another 6% of the total supply before the Ethereum phase is really even over. So how fast can they do that? We're already in September. That's my thesis on why we just continue to extend. All these phases are lasting longer, and you're getting real money in place. The fact that Ethereum went from $90 to $4,800 with really no institutional demand, and now we're sitting below $4,800 with Thomas Lee and Joe Lubin buying billions and billions and billions of Ethereum, just tells me how undervalued we are if we get any kind of retail FOMO like we did last cycle.
Well, I think that was the key, right? That's the key difference. The last cycles were basically purely retail. There was no institutional money in the previous cycles. And so, it does take a while for these institutions to accumulate. But if we're talking about 4 or 5% of the supply, we just looked and we saw, and we're bemoaning the fact that the Ethereum Foundation is selling $50 million worth of ETH, and they have 0.5% of the supply. Tom Lee alone is looking to buy 5%. Then that's not even including SBT. That's not including ETHZilla, Ether Machine, and anyone else that comes online and decides to join this stampede. So, I agree. I mean, it just wouldn't make any logical sense that in a month, 2 months, that all of a sudden this whole bull market comes crashing down right as the Fed is pivoting into quantitative easing. So, it's just, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The more I talked about it to you guys, the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking I'm going to actually hold through December. We'll see.
Ian will not be dumping on your head.
No, I will not, guys. No, I will not. Let's share. We got a comment from a new viewer. I think he's a new viewer anyway. Shout out to Brightlight. Digging your profile pic, by the way. FG Nexus wants to buy 10% of the ETH supply. I'm actually not even sure who that is, believe it or not. And I'm stay pretty up to speed on these news stories. But hey, look at that. Another entity coming out there saying they want to buy 10% of the supply. We'll have to do some research into the FG Nexus. I'm not sure about that, that company yet. But, we've been saying this for a while. As these Ethereum strategic reserve companies and the Bitcoin strategic reserve, as they see and continue to have success, right? Stock price goes up, they're buying more assets, stock price go up, they do more rounds. As that train continues, more and more companies are going to want to join in. Why wouldn't they? Easy money. Wow, easy way to pump my own stock. So you're going to continue to see companies jumping on this bandwagon here. Will it end, perfectly for all of them? Probably not. But I think this ETH strategic reserve phase really, just beginning. It's just started in June, and we're only 2 months in.
Yeah, this is my first time hearing about FG Nexus, but I did look it up, and they have acquired 200 million in Ether in a bid to get 10% of network stake, which would be wild because even Thomas Lee's only going for 5%. Do I think they can get 10%? I don't know how they get that much funds, but to have that ambition, that's fine because they got a long way to go with their first 200 million ETH purchase. They bought 47,331 ETH. They need to get 10 million ETH to achieve their goal. So we'll take it.
Apparently it's on the strategic reserve page. We got to get Brightlight here on the live stream more often. He's dropping knowledge and information for us. Very helpful, my friend. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, we got to do some more research into that company, though. Who are they, right? Who's backing them? I'm curious. But it's good news.
Yeah, if they're going for 10% and they end up at 5%, hey, we'll take that. Even 2%. Think of what that'll do to the price.
We just need retail. That's, I guess, really what it comes down to, right? And I think the sad reality of, the situation, at least here in the U.S., is that there is a lot of uncertainty. These high rates have weighed the economy down for multiple years now. You look at the housing market, frozen. You look at the job market, apparently the upcoming report, the job numbers are going to be revised downward again. So the job market's not doing great. I just think people are not in a good place financially across the board. So yes, Wall Street, they always have a shit ton of money. And never confuse Wall Street with Main Street. Those are two completely different worlds. Wall Street is swimming in money. Main Street, not so much right now. And so it is going to take some lower rates. It's going to take, I think, positive news circulating through the economy. Maybe tariff FUD to be completely behind us, for people to start feeling confident again and wanting to dip their toes in the financial markets in these risky, quote-unquote, risky sectors. So this is where we're at. And it's going to take a bit more patience for retail to come in, but I believe they're coming.
There's also a ton of retail holders of assets and altcoins from previous cycles, from the 2017 cycle, from the 2020 cycle, 2021, whatever, in this bear market. But remember, none of these retail people are hyped to put more money in when candles are red. None of these retail people are telling their family and friends about crypto when their candles are red. When things get green, like when Solana was having the run, even when I was playing indoor soccer, people are like, oh, I bought some more Sol. I'm doing, they want to talk about their investments because they're winning, and that's how word of mouth gets other retail people on board, whether it's $100, $1,000, $10,000, doesn't matter, because then as people start winning, that spider web happens, and now you're getting a bunch more people with $100 dumping into the markets. You also have people not looking to cheat out for 10 or 20% when they're seeing green candles. They're like, well, if I just get another 2x, if I just get another 5x, if I just get another 10x, and they hold for longer, the diamond hands is what drives green candles. So there is a lot of retail participants. They're just not actively participating. You don't see them on X. We're getting 1,000 views on videos. When retail comes back, we'll get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 because people are out there. They're just not tuned in because they check their portfolio app and they're like, it's still $4,000, or oh, it's up to 5 or down to 3. That isn't getting them excited. They're not bragging about that to friends, and they don't feel comfortable getting their friends into Coinbase when they're not getting green candles. So there's a lot of people out there that are just waiting to be activated. We see it even with the OGs in Crypto Paradise. When Surf Token goes up 20, 30%, whoa, the activity in the Telegram is way higher than when, Pulse Chain's down, Surf's down at the lows, and nothing much is going on. We're telling you we're going to do things. You can see that Surf Token is getting bought and burned every day, but you don't have those green candles that spur activity, dopamine, and FOMO.
No, you're absolutely right. That's just the nature of the financial markets, the nature of people. That fear, greed, we like to talk about, those twin emotions that drive the markets. We're not in that greed phase yet because the green candles haven't allowed for it. Now, I will tell you this. One way to overcome the sort of that pessimism or that lack of enthusiasm is to just have held on for longer than almost everyone else. And then, like Nate said, hey, if you held on for Bitcoin over a 5-year period, you're up no matter what. I don't care when you bought it. You could have bought the tops. You're still up over 5 years. So myself, not to brag, but I'm feeling great. I look at my portfolio, ETH 4,300, let's go. Because I was buying that shit when it was like sub $1,000, right? And I held on. So, not to brag, but, being diamond-handed and having a 10-year time horizon means that even when things are a little bit boring, I'm still happy. Now, I might not
Ethereum
be jumping from the rooftop, and my alts are down, and I'm not as excited as, when it's full-blown alt season. But if you got a long time horizon, you bought into these blue-chip assets when they were super cheap, you're sitting pretty right now.
Ethereum new high for the day, 44.60, and hopefully we can help you find the next blue chip assets that survive the next market cycle, because that's what people are saying. Look, we're not, cool. If I could have bought, that would have been great, but I didn't buy. Now ETH's 44.60. Maybe it goes to 10 grand. Maybe it goes to 15 grand. What is the next asset, Crypto Paradise? And that's what we're here to hopefully help you find. We believe Pulse Chain's undervalued. We believe Surf is very undervalued. PTGC has done wonders for us. That's on a big dip. You can grab that. And we'll continue to try to find some more assets. Fuck 9 to 5, a meme coin on Solana, sitting at like 1.2 million, $1 million market cap. We got in that at 300K. It ran as high as 8 million. So what's going to be the blue chips that survive this bull cycle, bear cycle, and next cycle, put in higher lows? That's what hopefully we can help you find.
That's a great point. Yeah, people are looking for the low cap gems to do the 10, 100x if they're new to the space. But even if you're relatively experienced, I think it's smart to siphon some money as the bull market goes on and you're in profits. Cycle some money over into some blue chips, man. Have some money in Bitcoin. Like, I don't know. I feel there's a lot of people in crypto who they for some reason are like, I'm against Bitcoin. I don't know. I'm only in alts. I don't know about that strategy, bro. Like, yeah, you might be happy for 6 months out of a 4-year halving cycle, but for the rest of the time, you're pissed off. So have some money in Bitcoin, have some money in ETH. Obviously, we're here to find you those 10, those 100x gainers as we have in the past. But now is not that time. Now is the time to be patient, to wait, research, and wait for the right time to deploy capital. All right, well, my kids are yelling and screaming downstairs, so I should probably get going here. It's been a great live stream. We'll be back tomorrow, as always. Thank you, Bright Light, for jumping in. Martin, thank you, guys. Fat Sammy, I think, was here. Todd was here as well. We got to get him on the show one of these days. But great stuff today, guys. And until then,